Madhava Punya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Jaya Mahatma Sabribhaya Acharya Sukare Smana Ram Saraswati Swami Bhagavad Jaya Nanda Gori Vaishnava Jaya Ramacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Jaya Names of the whole Sri Krishna Sri Radha Krishna Bhogavna Sam Kanda Radha Kanda Giriyodan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Guru Dwarka Dham Ki Jai Swami Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai All glories to their All glories to their Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Gurudev, and all glories to assembled Vaishnava devotees, and all glories to His Holiness SVAYAM Bhagavan KESAVA SWAMI Maharaj Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So, dear devotees, we thank you all for being here today. As you may be aware, we are very much fortunate. We have His Holiness SVAYAM Bhagavan KESAVA SWAMI Maharaj with us today, who will be speaking to us from the Nectarian Srimad Bhagavatam. So we encourage devotees to stay alert and attentive, because we're going to drink Krishna Katha through our ears. It's interesting how we can drink with our ears spiritually. So, Maharaj, again, we formally welcome you back to Hare Krishna Africa Zoom platform. So, Without further ado, Maharaj, you may unmute and we'll put the verse on the screen and you take it over from here. Hare
Thank you so
Krishna.
much, Sada Prabhu. My pranams to you, Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
And nice to see the devotees online and those who may watch the recording later on. So yes, we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam today. And a very beautiful section of the Bhagavatam. So yeah, without further ado, we can have a look at the verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nastaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular class attendance at classes on Srimad Bhagavatam, all that is troublesome within the heart is almost completely destroyed, and irrevocable transcendental loving service is established as an irrevocable fact. Hare Krishna. Okay, yes, so we're reading today from Canto number 2, chapter number 8, entitled Questions by King Parikshit. And today we're reading from text number 27. Sutta uvacha sa upamantrito ragya kathayam iti satpate brahmarato bhrisham prito vishnuraten samsadi. Sutta uvacha sa upamantrito ragya kathayam iti satpate brahmarato bhrisham prito vishnuraten samsadi. Sutta uvacha sa upamantrito ragya kathayam iti satpate brahmarato bhrisham prito vishnuraten samsadi. Word by word, Sutta Uvacha, Srila Sutta Goswami said, Saha he, Sukadev Goswami, Upamantrita, thus being inquired, Ragya, by the king, Kathayam, in the topics, Iti, thus, Satpate, of the highest truth, Brahmarataha, Sukadev Goswami, Brisham, very much, Prita, pleased, Vishnuratena, by Maharaj Parikshit, Samsadi, in the meeting. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Shalasi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sutta Goswami said, thus, Sukadev Goswami, being invited by Maharaj Parikshit to speak on topics of the Lord Sri Krishna with the devotees, was very much pleased. Purport. Srimad Bhagavatam can be legitimately discussed only among the devotees of the Lord, as the Bhagavad Gita was authoritatively discussed between Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the Lord and the devotee, respectively. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the postgraduate study of the Bhagavad Gita, can also be discussed between the scholars and devotees like Sukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. Otherwise, the real taste of the nectar cannot be relished. Sukadev Goswami was pleased with Maharaj Parikshit because he was not at all tired of hearing the topics of the Lord and was more and more anxious to hear them on and on with interest. Foolish interpreters unnecessarily tackle the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam when they have no access to the subject matter. There is no use in non-devotees meddling with the two topmost Vedic literatures, and therefore Shankaracharya did not touch Srimad Bhagavatam for commentation. In his commentation on the Bhagavad Gita, Sripad Shankaracharya accepted Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but later on he commented from the impersonalist's view. But being conscious of his position, he did not comment on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Sukadeva Goswami was protected by Lord Krishna, Vidbre Brahma Vaivarta Puran, and therefore he is known as Brahmarata. And Sriman Parikshit Maharaj was protected by Vishnu, thus he is known as Vishnurat. As devotees of the Lord are always protected by the Lord. As devotees, they are always protected by the Lord. It is clear also in this connection that a Vishnu-rata should hear Srimad Bhagavatam from a Brahma-rata and no one else, because others misrepresent the transcendental knowledge, thus spoil one's valuable time. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishram Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. So just the translation again, Sutta Goswami said, thus Sukadev Goswami, being invited by Maharaj Parikshit to speak on topics of the Lord Sri Krishna with the devotees, was very much pleased. So before I begin to try to also speak, small as I am, glowworm, I first offer my obeisances to all the Vaishnavas on the call. You're all senior to me and great inspirations to me, learned, dedicated, and realized in many ways in the philosophy of the Bhagavatam. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to be in your Sangha. And yes, let us proceed. Speaking Srimad Bhagavatam is a great science. Sometimes we take it very casual in the day of Zoom, the day and age of Zoom, where things are so easily accessible. We may not realize sometimes the gravity of what is going on when someone is speaking Bhagavatam and someone is hearing Bhagavatam. It's a very, very transcendental connection. It's a very, very transcendental experience. Srila Prabhupada himself, he was noted by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur because of all things. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, I noted him I've marked him. He's a marked man because I realized, I've seen he likes to hear. In other words, in this day and age, the ability to hear nicely with rapt attention, as Srila Prabhupada says, is very, very rare quality. And therefore, the conversation between two people can only go as deep as the qualification of two people. Like if there's someone who knows so many things about cars, the mechanics of cars, but then someone else comes who knows nothing, you will not be able to reveal all the secrets of the engine and the motor and the radiator and so many things because the other person cannot appreciate. So in other words, the speaker and the hearer both have to be qualified. In the Niti, there's a verse which says, what is the use of an amazing speaker if the audience is not ready? He says it's like a washerman who sets up a shop in a village full of Naga Babas. So what's the point of being a washerman in a village of Naga Babas? People who don't wear any clothes is pointless. You have so much to offer, but you cannot do anything. And similarly, our audience may be extremely qualified, but if the speaker is not in the right consciousness, then also it is a limitation. So therefore, what we're seeing in the Srimad Bhagavatam is an incredible qualification on both sides. Actually, in the culture of before someone speaks, what they often do is they do an introduction. And you may or may not be aware, but the introduction of a speaker has two purposes. The first thing that the introduction of the speaker is meant to do is instill some faith in the audience that this speaker is qualified. Why am I even giving my time to hear this person? I could be doing other things. But when the introduction is there, then the listeners realize, oh my God, this is the qualification of the speaker. I should listen. But did you know that the introduction of a speaker also serves a second purpose? The introduction of the speaker is also meant to inspire the speaker, not because they're hearing their own glories, but it's meant to also inspire the speaker because the introduction is also meant to convey some of the eagerness, the appreciation, the seriousness, and the desire that the audience has to hear from the speaker. And therefore, it gives the speaker the confidence and it gives the audience the confidence. And when the confidence in the qualification of each other is there on both sides, then something amazing can happen to allow the manifestation of the magic of Krishna Katha to take place. When a speaker and a hearer come together, then the speaker is in a very meditative state of mind. In their heart and mind, they are praying, let the right words come to my mind. Let the right words come at the right time. Let them come at the right time, but also in the right spirit, so that I can actually convey what's in my heart to the people who are listening. So the speaker is in a very meditative state of mind. Let the right words come at the right time in the right spirit. And therefore the speaker is praying for empowerment. But at the same time, the audience should also be very, very meditative. They should have an open heart. They should have an open mind. They should have open ears. And the listeners have to be in the mood that now let me be open to receiving all the messages that the Lord and his devotees want to convey to me. Because when we come into a class, if we're really in tune, then we'll understand that Krishna is giving us all the answers we need to hear to move our spiritual life forward, but we need to be tuned in. And therefore, there has to be a deep meditation on both sides, a deep meditation on the side of the speaker and a deep meditation on the side of the listener. And when both meditations are very, very deep, then incredible mystical things happen in Krishna Katha. Like Mahaprabhu comes to Ramananda Rai and he says, Ami eka batul, tumi dvitiya batul, ata eva amai tomai hoyasa matul. Mahaprabhu looks at Ramananda Rai and he says, Ami eka batul, I am one madman. Tumi dvitiya batul, and you are one second madman. And when one madman comes together with another madman, and then they discuss the topics of the Lord, then mad things happen and the madness just expands more and more. Because Atta Eva Amai Tamai Hoya Samatul, there is no difference. Samatul, we are exactly on the same page, on the same wavelength, on the same mission, which is to find Krishna through Hari Katha. And so this resonance has to take place between the speaker and the listeners. And this is what is happening in the Bhagavatam. Parikshit and Sukadeva are completely resonating. Narad and Vyasa completely resonating. Shonaka Rishi and the Sutta Goswami are completely resonating. And all of you, I don't know, I'm sure all of you have been. Sometimes you just go into an assembly where Hari Katha is going on, and you can feel when there's a resonance between the audience and the speaker. You can feel that the speaker is very meditative, and you can feel that the audience is very meditative. And because that Samatul, there's no difference. Therefore, then amazing things begin to happen. So actually in our movement, this is a great art that we all must develop more and more, is when the devotees come together for Hari Katha, it has to be samatul, it has to resonate, it has to be aligned. And when that is happening on both sides, then it really, really amazing things happen. And here Maharaj Parikshit is asking his questions. You know, even in the question someone asks in a class, so much is also communicated. Because when someone asks a question, the first thing that the speaker is understanding is what is the knowledge of this person. And when they can understand through an intelligent inquiry that someone has knowledge, then the speaker feels inspired to take the knowledge to another level. When someone asks an inquiry, what is also being expressed is one's humility. Because when a speaker sees that an inquirer has humility, then a speaker sees that there's space to feel something. But if there's pride and one is full of it, then there's no space. So then the speaker doesn't feel inspired. So the inquiry demonstrates the knowledge of the listener, which the speaker can build on. The inquiry of the listener represents the humility of the listener, which shows the space that then the speaker can fill. The inquiry also demonstrates the desire of the listener to go deeper in Krishna consciousness. And then the speaker feels the enthusiasm to also pull out the deep things within their heart to share on that journey of going deeper. And in this way, the questions are very powerful. And therefore, you'll find, verses in the Bhagavatam, Munayo saduprishtoham bhavadbir lokamangalam yat kirta krishna samprashno yenatma suprasidati. After the sages ask all the questions, then Sutta Goswami says, Munayo sadhu prishtoham, your inquiries are incredible. Your questions are wonderful. Because those questions and the sincerity and the knowledge and the wisdom and the humility and the desire behind them inspire Sutta Goswami to speak. So therefore, Actually, oftentimes what happens is a speaker is restraining themselves. The speaker has many things they want to share from their heart, but the speaker will not reveal those things unless the speaker feels that the audience will fully benefit from it. Therefore, even in Bhagavatam, it said, a sadhu is like a cloud. Sometimes a cloud may rain, and sometimes a cloud may not rain. It may just stay there in the sky for the whole day, no rain. And sometimes, out of its own will, it may decide to rain. And in the same way, the words and the realizations, dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam, is said that all the truths of dharma are hidden within the hearts of the Vaishnavas. But whether the sadhu decides to share it or not, that's up to the sadhu. But if the audience wants to draw that out, they can do by showing their knowledge, their desire, their humility, their seriousness, and their eagerness to learn. And so Hari Katha, Krishna Katha is very much a two-way street. It really depends on both sides. And therefore Parikshit, he is really inspiring Sukadev Goswami like anything, because he's just asking like amazing questions. Like Parikshit, no, like it's funny, in the second canto, Sukadev Goswami begins speaking in answer to Parikshit's question about what is the duty of someone who's about to die. And it's amazing because Sukadev Goswami just nails it. He just answers it. So like in 3 chapters, it's like it's all over. He's given all the philosophy. And Parikshit is kind of looking at Sukadev Goswami thinking, my God, I better come up with some new questions because I got to keep this person speaking. If I don't, he's already said all the philosophy. Otherwise, the class is going to end, you know? So Parikshit is just digging deep and coming out with all these amazing questions. And therefore, the beautiful Bhagavatam begins to unfold more and more. Sadhapu, can I be able to share my screen?
Yes, Maharaj.
I just want to show you something which is related to what we're discussing today. What we're basically discussing today is the speaker and the listener, and how that's a great science in order for Krishna Katha to take place. So yeah, I just wanted to show you something that I think might be useful for all of you to know. Yeah, I just wait for sharing rights from Prabhu.
Yes, you are
I'm
now.
the co-host now? Okay, great.
Yes,
Wonderful. So screen share is loading. I think you can see my screen now. Yeah,
Yes,
you can see my screen, right?
we can see.
Yeah, so all of you are aware that the Bhagavatam has 10 topics. Atra sargo visargascha stanam poshanamudaya manvantare shanukatha nirodha muktirashraya. So these are the 10 topics of the Bhagavatam, and different commentators break it down in different ways. But what I'm sharing with you today is what Sridhar Swami says. His commentary on the Bhagavatam is known as Bhavartha Deepika. And he basically says that although in one sense all the topics are in all the cantos, every canto has a emphasis. So he says the first topic, Atra Sarga, the first topic, which is elemental creation, is primarily found in the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam. Visarga, the next topic, which is about Brahma's creation, secondary creation, that is specifically found in canto number 4. Because if you remember, that's where we hear about Swayambhuva Manu and Satarup, and then their kids, and then their descendants, like that. If you remember canto 5, it's all about the structure of the universe, therefore Sthanam, planetary maintenance, planetary systems. That is described mainly in canto 5. And then Atra Sargo Visargascha Sthanam Poshanam. The next topic, Poshanam, is very much described in the 6th canto, protection and mercy, because we hear about how Ajamil gets protected, Chitraketu, Vitrasura, all of these pastimes are there, all about protection and mercy. And then Sthanam, Poshanam, Uti, Utaya. Uti means the creative impetus. And the creative impetus in the material world is lust. Everything expands because there is lust. And who perhaps embodies that more than Hiranyakashipu, who has so many desires and who has so many material attachments. Therefore, 7th canto is Uti. And then 8th canto is Manvantara, because we hear about all the different Manus in canto number 8. And then 9 is known as Ishanu Katha, activities of incarnations, because in 9 we hear all about Lord Ram, we hear all about Lord Parshuram, and we hear all about the lineages which ultimately lead to Krishna's appearance in this world. And then, of course, canto number 10, Ashraya, the ultimate shelter. Of course, that's the smiling face, Krishna's pastimes. 11 is known as the canto which focuses on liberation. It is dominated by the conversations between Krishna and Uddhav. And Krishna is preparing Uddhav to basically take sannyas and give up all his material attachments. And therefore, mukti, liberation from material attachment, is very much the focus of Canto 11. And Canto 12 is about dissolution, nirodha, because there we hear about Kali Yuga, we hear about Markandeya Rishi and the universal dissolution. Ultimately, we hear that about the annihilation of Maharaj Parikshit's own body. And so here you can see how the 10 topics are playing out over the different cantos. But this question still remains, is that if these are the 10 topics in these 10 cantos, what is the 1st and 2nd canto dealing with then? And what Sridhar Swami says is that the 1st canto of the Bhagavatam is dealing with adhikar, or the qualification. Before Bhagavatam even begins, the 1st canto, we may or may not be aware, but what it's basically doing is it's teaching us what is the adhikar, or the qualification of someone who wants to hear Bhagavatam in such a way that it will transform and move their heart. And Sridhar Swami says the 2nd canto is all about sadhana, or the means by which one can actually achieve the goal of life, pure devotional service. But today, I want to focus on this. See this? Adhikar. Because that's what today's verse is all about. Srila Prabhupada in the purport is saying, what is the adhikar of those who are hearing and those who are speaking in order for the magic of Krishna Katha to take place? So the 1st canto of the Bhagavatam teaches us what is the adhikar of someone who actually wants to hear Bhagavatam. And so, this is what is explained. If you look at the 1st canto of the Bhagavatam, basically there's 3 major conversations taking place. In the first 3 chapters of the 1st canto, we're hearing the conversations between Sutta Goswami and the sages. The sages, 88,000 of them, headed by Shaunaka Rishi, they've come to do the yajna. And what they do is they pose 6 questions to Sutta Goswami. And in the 1st chapter, those 6 questions are posed. And then in the subsequent chapters 2 and 3, all of those 6 questions are answered by Sutta Goswami. So what Sridhar Swami says is that here we learn the first qualification of the speaker and the listener. Sutta Goswami represents utsaha, or one who is eager to speak. If a speaker is not inspired, if a speaker is not joyful, if a speaker is not enthused about what they're going to speak about, nothing magical is going to happen. First, the wisdom has to be moving their own heart, and then they can move other people's hearts. And therefore, Sutta Goswami represents Utsaha, and he also says Parampara. Utsaha means he's enthusiastic, and Parampara means he heard Bhagavatam from Sukadev Goswami himself. And therefore, he's qualified to be a speaker because he has Utsaha and he's in Parampara. And Shonaka and the sages who are the listeners, their qualification, Sridhar Swami says, is jigyasa. They're inquisitive. They're desirous. They show Sutta Goswami that they really, really want to know. And that is represented by their incredible inquiries. And so, the foundation of a speaker and a listener is that the speaker must be enthusiastic and in parampara. And the listener must be inquisitive, desirous to know. If these two things are not there, it's not going anywhere. Of course, there's still purification, but it's not going anywhere elevated. This is the basis. But now check this out. Sridhar Swami, he says, now let's move on to the next conversation. Because what happens at the end of the 3rd chapter is that after the 6 questions of the sages have been answered, they ask another 4 questions. And the first of those 4 questions are, how was the Bhagavatam, why did the Bhagavatam come about? And so between chapters 4 and 6, we hear about the conversation between Narada and Vyas. Because Vyas is dissatisfied. He's compiled so many things, but he still feels an emptiness in his heart. And Narad comes and tells him the mistake that he's made. And so Sridhar Swami says this is the second conversation, and this reveals a deeper adhikar. And the deeper adhikar is that, sorry, give me 1 second. The deeper adhikar is that Narada Muni, who's the speaker in the second conversation, is Bhagavat Kripa. He got the mercy of the devotees. Because remember, Narada Muni heard from the Bhakti Vedantas. He associated with the Bhakti Vedantas. And because he heard from someone and he got the mercy from personalities whose heart had been moved by Hari Katha, therefore he became qualified to speak Hari Katha. In other words, without being blessed by the Lord, blessed by the devotees of the Lord, you can't speak. Krishna Shakti Vinana He Tada Pravartan. And the qualification of Vyasadeva is Bhagavat Kripa. Both of these actually relate to both of them. But Vyasadeva also similarly was blessed, was divinely empowered with mercy. And because they both have mercy, therefore they're able to speak and they're able to listen. And Sridhar Swami says this is the deeper qualification. That who has Bhagavat and Bhagavat Kripa, the mercy of the Lord and the devotees, they can go even deeper. But then Sridhar Swami says there's an even deeper qualification. Because at the end of the 3rd chapter, the sages asked a further 4 questions. The first question was how the Bhagavatam came about. But then the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th question was all about Parikshit. And therefore, between 7 and 19, we hear all about Parikshit and how he renounced his kingdom and came to the Ganga to hear Bhagavatam. And therefore, Sridhar Swami says, in these last chapters, we're hearing the ultimate qualification of someone who wants to hear Bhagavatam and someone who wants to speak. And the ultimate deeper qualification is that Sukadev Goswami represents Sharanagati. Like Sukadev Goswami had no other concern. He came out of the womb, he's like, I'm out of here, I'm going. I have nothing to do with this world. My only mission in life is surrender to the Supreme Lord. And therefore, Sukadev Goswami represents Saranagati, someone in whose life there is no aspect which is disconnected from the Supreme Lord. If you get the chance to sit in front of someone and hear Bhagavatam, someone of that qualification, I mean, there's just nothing else to do in life. You just sit there for the rest of eternity. That's perfection. And the listener, Parikshit, also represents the highest qualification because he is Sarvanya Tyaga. Because what has Parikshit done? He's given up everything. Atmajaya Sutagara Pashudra Vinabandushu Raje Chavi Kale Nityam Virudham Mamatam Jaho. The Bhagavatam says, Jaya, he gave up his wife. Suta, he gave up his children. Ghara, he gave up his palace. Pashu, he gave up his cavalry. Dravina, he gave up his treasury. Rajay, he gave up his kingdom. Virudham Mamatam Jaho, all of these things which are so difficult to give up. Sarvanya Tyaga, he gave it all up. In other words, he was not attached to anything of the world, and therefore he could listen. The reason we can't listen, we can't hear, is because we're still holding on to all the things of this world, and therefore is hijacking our consciousness. There's no space. You see, when we buy something in the world, or we acquire something in the world, a piece of our mind enters into that thing. And when you have many, many things that you're attached to, it means your mind is in many, many different places, and therefore your mind cannot be present in the moment. This is why the first canto of the Bhagavatam is describing Adhikar. Why do people get bored hearing Bhagavatam? Why do people say, I don't feel the taste, I don't feel the transformation? Because only when there's a qualified speaker and only when there's a qualified listener can the actual magic of Bhagavatam take place. And therefore the speaker must be utsaha, enthusiastic. On top of that, the speaker, Bhagavat Kripa, they must have got the mercy of the Vaishnavas. They must have pleased the Lord and the Vaishnavas. Otherwise you can't. And Saranagati. The speaker has to have no other agenda than doing what they're doing simply as a service. They have to have no other desire in their life save and except glorification and surrender to Krishna. That's the qualification of a speaker. And the qualification of a listener is jigyasa. They got to really want to know. They got to really be inquisitive. In their heart, they got to really be desirous. And on top of that, mercy. They must have done some service to get mercy. And sarvanya, they have to let themselves go from all the concerns of this world. Otherwise, when they come to hear Bhagavatam, their mind will be so preoccupied by different things that they can't be present. If we understand this deeply, this one slide, then we'll understand what kind of atmosphere we're trying to create when we do Hari Katha. This is basically what we're trying to do. And so I just want to share one final realization with all of you that I recently was thinking about. And then I'll open it up for questions and answers. Oftentimes, as preachers, what we're trying to do is give people faith in Krishna consciousness, naturally. But nowadays I realize that what we also need to be doing is we also need to be generating doubt within people. And I'll explain what I mean. But let me just continue. Often as a preacher, we think that we're supposed to be giving answers. But what I've been realizing more and more is that maybe our job as preachers is more to be stimulating questions. And often as preachers, what we do is we're focused on giving a lot of philosophy. But what we also need to do is open people's hearts. Because maybe so much of our preaching is based on this. But what if you're trying to give people faith in Krishna consciousness, but you haven't generated enough doubt in material life? You haven't generated, or they haven't generated enough detachment from the materialistic goals and desires, then that faith can never really grow. Because what does the Gita say? Bhogeshwarya prashaktanam taya parita chetasham vyavasayatmika buddhi samado anuvidiyate. For one who's too much attached, too many desires, too many hopes in the material world, the resolute determination will never take place. So it's not just about giving faith, but we also have to generate doubts. It's not just about giving answers, because if you give an answer to a question that's not deeply burning within someone, even though they may understand the answer, that answer doesn't touch them in the deepest place of their heart. First, they have to be asking the question very deeply. And then when someone is asking the question very deeply, and then you give them the answer, then the answer means so much more. Oftentimes we give people answers to questions that they're not asking deeply, that they're not burning for the answer for. And therefore that answer doesn't have the impact. Therefore, a devotee also has to try to help people question things. And we give so much philosophy. But people's heart must be open. Otherwise, they're hearing, but they're not really hearing, because the heart is closed. The heart is steel framed. The heart is not able to absorb. The heart is not a fertile ground for those seeds of philosophy to then sprout into a beautiful tree with many fruits. So here we're seeing that to be a good listener, one has to have sufficient doubt in material life. To be a good listener, one has to be really asking questions about life deeply within their heart. And to be a good listener, one has to really open their heart and really be a blank slate to see what Krishna wants to implant there. And then when those three things are there, when the Vaishnavas are giving you gifts of faith, giving you answers, giving you philosophy, then it has more impact. And so here in today's verse, we're learning so much about what it means to be a good listener, what it means to be an appropriate speaker. And when this is there, we can really relish Bhagavatam, Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavuka, that we're being told by Vyasadeva. Now relish, drink the Bhagavatam, but we must become a Rasika, a connoisseur of devotion. Then the knowledge becomes full of rasa, if you are Rasika. Like the sages say to Sutta, Vayam tu na vitripyama utamashloka vikrame yachrinvatam rasa jnanam svadu svadu pade pade. We never tire to hear what you're saying, because svadu svadu pade pade, at every step we're feeling more and more relish. Rasa jnanam, because this knowledge is full of rasa, because they've become rasika. They understand how to listen, how to absorb, how to relish. So this is the goal of our life, to relish Bhagavatam. And that means in our movement that if we're given the opportunity to be a speaker, we should take it as a deep service to become qualified. And when we have the opportunity to be in the service of a listener, we have to become deeply qualified. And the more there's a deeper qualification of speaker and listener, the more magic will happen through Hari Katha in all of our assemblies where these things take place. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Apologies for my lack of qualification as a speaker. Tried my best.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for feeding us this wonderful, amazing Krishna Katha. And I'm sure devotees definitely have lots of questions, and hopefully they are deeper questions. And I think we have Kusha Prabhu with his hand raised. Kusha Prabhu, please you may unmute.
Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances, is Kusha. In the course of your lecture, you mentioned that the speaker must be joyful to be able to speak, to have effect to the audience. So if the speaker is not joyful, what's the sense of speaking? I remember that Prabhupada said a speaker must be qualified to sit on the Vyasasana to speak on Bhagavatam. So if the speaker himself or herself know he or she is not joyful, why comment to speak of the scripture?
Yes, yes. So Prabhu is asking, we have to be joyful, we have to be being moved by the Krishna conscious philosophy. But what about when we know we're not joyful, we're not being moved? Then do we just hand in our notice and ask another person to step up? See, Kusha Prabhu, what I would say is this is not black or white. We all have some joy. We all have some relish. We all have a little bit of love for Krishna. Now, some days we may feel it like I can see behind you, you're clearly in the Bahamas there or somewhere. But there's an ocean behind you. So sometimes our love, our joy may be like an ocean, and sometimes it may be like a little bit of a small puddle. But something is there. So what to do? We are works in progress. We have some joy, we have some realization, we have some love, we have some attachment for Krishna. And maybe it's mixed with many other things, but we have something. So let us share whatever joy we do have. And we can also be honest, like even like one devotee used to tell me, if you're not perfect, you should be humble. And then he said, but the moment you're humble, you're perfect. So I like that very much, because we may look at ourselves and we say, like, I have so many disqualifications. But if that means that we then become humble and we say, now I rely on the Vaishnavas, now I rely on Krishna. The moment you rely, you become perfect, because you're no longer limited by your own shortcomings. And so I would say, Kusha Prabhu, is definitely you have some joy in your heart. Definitely you have some love. Otherwise, you wouldn't be where you are now. And share that love, share that joy. And when you share it, it expands.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Maharaj. My last question is on Prabhupada, qualification of the hearer, the speaker, and then Prabhupada and the unqualified Americans, the leaders of Prabhupada. When Prabhupada went to America, the hearers were not qualified, but he was speaking. Then they give them faith. Then they became qualified.
Yeah.
So in the course of the lecture, you talk about the qualification of the speaker and the hearer. So how do we differentiate the qualification of the hearer and mercy?
Yeah. Of course, one time, one person came to Prabhupada and he said, your disciples, they don't pronounce the Sanskrit properly. And Prabhupada said their pronunciation may be defective, but their renunciation is perfect. So, although in one sense we can say they were disqualified in many ways, they were very qualified because they gave up many things to serve Srila Prabhupada. They renounced. You know, Prabhupada said, when I called them, they came to me. Prabhupada was speaking to an Indian audience once. And he said, the difference between you, he was speaking to the Indians and the Westerners. He said, I was calling all of you, but none of you came. But when I called them, they came. And therefore, definitely Prabhupada's disciples had qualification, even if not on a intellect, but they gave life. Yeah, they gave their life. But you're also right. You know, like if a speaker is very high in their qualification and a listener is still a little lower, because the speaker is so powerful, they can bring the listener up. And you know, it also works the other way, that sometimes when an audience is very eager and very sincere, and a speaker may have less qualification, by the empowerment of the audience, the speaker can also rise, because the inquisitiveness of the audience makes the speaker feel, wow, you know, they get empowered. So yeah, it's dynamic. It's very mystical, no? This between speaker and listener is very mystical thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just say one more thing, Kusha Prabhu. That the reason I'm talking about this is because we have to understand Hari Katha, Krishna Katha is a team game.
Yeah.
It's a team. Sometimes we turn up to a class and we're just waiting there for the speaker to do everything. But we don't understand that we all have an equal part in this to make this magical. And if every person in the room is understanding their responsibility in the assembly of the Hari Katha, then amazing things happen. That's why I'm speaking about this. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Kusha, thank you for those beautiful opening questions. We have Sarvatma Prabhu with his hand raised. I've been chasing this wonderful devotee for the past 25 years, which is a quarter of a century, to speak on this platform, and I've not been able to capture him. But someday, by the mercy of the devotees, we may be able to capture him. So, Prabhuji, please.
It's Sarvatma and Divya.
Yes, Sarvatma and Divya. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Well, you can just see why. One of the reasons is that after Keshava Maharaj, there's very little room for someone like me to say anything of value. Regardless, I at least I could qualify myself as an audience. I sometimes, let's say, I will just speak from my own point of view and not take someone else's place, and say Harikatha is described as the cure of all illnesses because it will elevate the person to Krishna consciousness. But we have this spiritual jaundice that doesn't allow us to taste, even if the speaker is ultra qualified, as in this case. Still, the taste is not there because, as you describe, pieces of our mind are attached to other parts of the material world and to Gramya Katha, and detachment is not present, not organically, not naturally. We have seen the disastrous results of artificial renunciation. Of course, in your case, I can see that you're truly renounced. You even use your own danda as a curtain rod behind you. So there is signs of ultra renunciation. So, and even if we know that is the right remedy, even if we hear it from a qualified speaker, even if we gather our utmost portion of sincerity and experience and some realization, still Harikatha is not sufficient, even though we know it's the right medicine, is the dosage is not a problem, the doctor is not a problem, the patient has a problem. So how do you cure this? There's no more sincerity. There is no room for more sincerity. That's all you can give. So please tell us how to get to the next step.
Prabhu, thank you so much for your kind words. I talked about Narad Muni and how he had served the Bhagavatas. And there's this beautiful verse in the Bhagavatam, Shushrusho Shradadhanasya Vasudeva Katharuchi Shyan Mahadsevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. The Bhagavatam says, by service to the great devotees, amazing service is done. And by that, Vasudeva Katharuchi, one gets an affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. We're in Srila Prabhupada's movement. Srila Prabhupada had such a big mission. Srila Prabhupada had such a big desire to spread Krishna consciousness. You're exemplary in that regard. And you know, like serving Srila Prabhupada's mission, I think we can definitely say that by sustained efforts in sharing Krishna consciousness, in trying to help people in their spiritual journey, definitely Krishna gives us more and more affinity for hearing his messages. So I think that's definitely one thing that, along with hearing, if we serve, if we really try to make the mission something that just runs through our veins, more like at night we go to bed like in anxiety, how will I move Srila Prabhupada's desires forward? When we wake up in the morning, we're enthused what we'll do today to spread that mission forward. I think that service gives us a lot of qualification to hear. That's one thing. I think the second thing is, you know, all the other Pancha Anga Bhakti, what happens with Pancha Anga Bhakti is they all nourish each other. So by going to the Dham, it then comes back to hearing Hari Katha. By chanting the holy name, the benefit of that comes back when you hear Hari Katha. By associating deeply with the Vaishnavas, the benefit of that comes back in Hari Katha. So I think all the time we spend in Pancha Anga Bhakti definitely nourishes our qualification to hear Hari Katha. And then the third thing I would say is that Srila Prabhupada, of course, we could say it was his humility, but still he said it, that he said, when I heard Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I also couldn't understand everything. He said, I couldn't understand many things, but I sat down and I just listened. And there definitely is something to be said for just sitting down and listening. Sometimes I tell devotees, I don't think you read the Bhagavatam till you read it for the third time. I think you just have to read it twice just to immediately like get even close to the Bhagavatam somewhat. And then when you read it for the third, the fourth time, then it becomes like, wow, it's really coming alive now. So I think there is something to be said about just sustained hearing, but sustained quality hearing. And one final thing I'll say on this is, in terms of sustained quality hearing, is I saw in many places around the world, nowadays I travel, so it's interesting to see the different cultures when it comes to hearing Bhagavatam. And you definitely see some places are way more serious than other places. And sometimes they just create a culture around hearing the Bhagavatam. Like, I've been to one place where like there's no phones are allowed, where Hari Katha is going on, where no one gets up in the middle of the class to do anything else, where nothing else is happening in the room except Hari Katha going on, where when everyone comes, the speaker sits and everyone comes close. And you think, like, in the West, we generally like our space, you know, like a bit of privacy. But there's something when we come together and everyone's there, they're present. And it's fascinating to see how in some places they've really created a culture around hearing Hari Katha, so that whenever anyone comes in that assembly, they realize this is serious business. So I think it's about creating that real seriousness around Harikatha. You know, like some places, I'm not so advanced, so it's difficult. Like some places I go to and I just don't feel inspired to speak. I come to the place, it's noisy, people are coming through, everyone's attention is distracted, and you just don't feel as though the gravity of it is there. So, in answer, Sarvatma Prabhu, I guess I'm just saying 4 things. The first thing is, as we serve more and more, we gain the affinity. The second thing is that when we do the other angas of Pancha Anga Bhakti, that then comes back to Harikatha to nourish it. The third thing is sustained hearing. You only read the Bhagavatam, I think, 3rd, 4th, 5th time. And the fourth thing is really creating a culture around the seriousness of hearing. I mean, His Holiness Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he would give a class, and the first hour of the class was just like glorification of the, before he even read the verse, you know, just to bring people to the seriousness of what's going on here. So if we can create a real seriousness around the culture of hearing, that may also really serve the purpose. These are some thoughts. Hope that helps.
I have an issue with repetition, that you
Yeah.
repetition meaning read the Bhagavatam more than twice. I've been chanting the Maha Mantra, which is the essence of all nectar, for maybe 30 million times. Is that, and still don't have the taste. So how do you expect me to get taste for Harikatha after just third, fourth reading of a Bhagavatam?
I think it's your humility, Sarvama Prabhu. I don't think you could be doing what you're doing if you
I
didn't.
don't think you know me. I think you're just saying things perfunctorily because
I don't think you could be on a call here, Prabhu, at asking these questions after decades in the movement. If there was nothing there, there must be. I don't think it would be possible. But it's, yeah, it's, I agree with you, not just mechanical repetition, but what I often share with people is that spiritual learning is like a spiral. You go round and round. But what happens is every time you're investing, you're bringing more to your reading, you're bringing more experiences, you're bringing more service, you're bringing more mercy. And therefore, you're going round reading the Bhagavatam once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and eventually you start circling in on the essence. And therefore, I feel that spiritual learning is like a spiral. It's not linear. It's not like material learning is linear, but spiritual learning is spiral, and you spiral in on the essence. You know, even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he gave numbers. He said, I think maybe someone knows on the call, he said something like you should read Chaitanya Bhagavat like 100 times or something. Like he was giving numbers that you should read it many times. And just on a side point, someone gave me this tip on the Bhagavatam, and it really helped me. They said what they do every single year is they read all of the translations of the Bhagavatam, just the translations. They read it twice a year. So like in 5 years, you've read all the translations of the Bhagavatam all the way through, like 10 times. And first I was thinking, yeah, but Prabhupada said the purports are the most important. But what I found is that when you read all the translations of the Bhagavatam and you just read the Bhagavatam as a story, then what happens is when you come round and you read that verse with the purport, because you know the storyline so well, the purport just carries so much more weight because you know the context around it. So it was actually really, really amazing. So nowadays I do that, like with CC and the Bhagavatam, I just read the translations. all the way through. And then I find when I come to read the verse with the purport, it just jumps out in a different way because you have more context around it. So anyway, just some thoughts.
Many thanks.
Thank you, Sarvatma.
Thank you so much, Sarvatma and Mother Divya, for being here and asking such thoughtful, in-depth questions. And I know there are like 3 or so hands raised, but Maharaj, when you're talking about just being there in the presence and then hearing, even if one does not understand, we all know the power of words, and that is why somebody may just use word to insult me and I get so angry. So we all know the power of words. Similarly, we also know the power of sounds. So I've heard from quite a number of Srila Prabhupada's disciples who shared that when they first met Srila Prabhupada, because Srila Prabhupada had like a deep accent, they could not understand a single word Srila Prabhupada was saying. But they kept sitting there and listening and listening. And as they kept sitting and listening, they understood and they remained devotees. So yes, if even we are not understanding the sound of the Bhagavatam coming out of the lotus mouth of the speaker has medicinal effect. So I felt like I may chip that one in. We go to
just to say on that as well, Mukunda Maharaj, he says very nicely the first time he heard Prabhupada, he said, I couldn't understand his Bengali accent, but he said something interesting. He said, but when I listened to him, I could feel the urgency in his voice. And he said, I had no idea what he was talking about, but I thought this man has an important message to tell the world. I have no idea what it is, but it's an important message because I can sense the urgency in his voice. So it said that when a sadhu speaks, they're not just conveying information, they're conveying their bhav, their conviction, their taste, their attraction. And therefore you catch all of those things. Even if sometimes the words don't register, there's still an effect coming by the dint of the sound vibration, as you said. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Sahadev Prabhu, may I add something to that is related to this, because we have to speak a bit of the qualification of a speaker. In this case, His Holiness Kesava Swami. He keeps deferring to us, perhaps senior, more like senior citizens than senior devotees, that we have made some kind of advancement by the passing of time. That is as if it was some kind of automatic thing. I refer to even Gurukula students as seniors to me, because they obviously, I wasn't born in a family of Vaishnavas. I have very little realization. So I think that regardless of how much time Maharaj has been in Krishna consciousness, his development of Krishna consciousness shows that he's senior to all of us, because he's been around. He's been doing this for a very long time. Maybe not in this body, but it's pretty obvious to us. That's my 2 cents.
Sarvatma Prabhu,
I won't debate
we
you.
all agree with you.
Thank you.
I missed that.
No, I said I won't debate you.
Thank you, Sarvatma Prabhu, for such a wonderful recognition. And Maharaj, thank you for your exemplary act in this regard. So, Rasalila Devi, please you may unmute.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna everybody.
Rasalila, do you have your video turned on?
I'm not able to. I'm in
Okay,
another.
all right, go ahead. Go ahead and
Thank
speak.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for your awesome lecture. And I think when we all see that notification that you'll be speaking, um, we're eager to come hear you. So, in a way, it's Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadev all over again. So thank you. My question is the element of purity. When the speaker itself struggles with purity, and also the listeners, especially when they're new devotees coming in to hear Krishna Katha, coming in for a different perspective, coming in to somehow or the other change their lives because it's a transformation. And we also know that energy, science says that it's never destroyed, if anything, it's passed on. So when that energy of the speaker, for lack of better words, it's low, and also these new devotees coming in to seek shelter, with such energy bouncing back and forth, how can, that purity, that force that we're looking for, that taste that we're looking for, to make that switch, to say, yes, this is why I'm here. When that is lacking, what can be done about that? I know Krishna intervenes, Krishna's in our heart, but what can be done in such a situation? Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I just make a side point and then I kind of try to address this a bit direct. Sadhu Sangha has two meanings, actually. Sadhu Sangha sadhu can mean a very advanced personality and a perfect person. And so Sadhu Sangha means that person up there, the great personality, the perfect one that you're associating with, the advanced devotee. But Sadhu Sangha, the double meaning of it is perfect association. In other words, if there are two devotees who maybe not be perfect, may not have high purity, they may be on the same level, but who are very like-minded, who are desirous to help each other and who are coming together for the same purpose, then even in that interaction, it's still considered sadhu sangha and it can still give you just as much benefit. So sometimes we think that Harikatha and the magic of it can only happen if there's someone who's at a very high level of purity coming into the assembly to generate that. But it can also just happen where many sincere people just come together and are really present and want to do it, despite whatever disqualification they have. Like, sometimes you go for a kirtan and you're waiting for like an amazing kirtanier or mridanga player to like take the kirtan to another level. And then sometimes what happens is like 4 devotees get in a room, none of them are that musical or anything, but because they all are just so sincere in chanting, you just have like an out of the world kirtan because everyone's just so present and everyone's just so sincere. So where we lack in purity, we can make up in sincerity. And sincerity means to understand I'm weak, I don't have that much, but I'm sincerely, I want to find Krishna, I want to help these people find Krishna. And then, as you said, the Krishna factor comes in and helps. So where we lack in purity, we make up with sincerity. And remember what I said about purity and humility as well, because sometimes our feeling of our lack of qualification can become our greatest qualification. Because in that humility, we become dependent on Krishna and we kind of get out of the way. And when we get out of the way, Krishna can do amazing things. So, yeah, I think we just deal with it like that through sincerity and humility. And then the final thing I'll say on this is that like once we went out on Sankirtan, we went to this town and it was like London is always raining. And so we went into this town. It was like January, which is cold. It's very difficult because the Christmas has gone. No one has any money. So we were in this town and it was so difficult. And in the middle of the day, the Sankirtan leader, he got everyone together because he knew the energy was down. So now we were waiting for his inspirational talk. So he got us all in a circle and he said, the weather is bad. The people are bad. Because you guys are bad. He goes, the whole situation is bad. And he goes, but the books are amazing. So he was just going bad, bad, bad. We're thinking, oh my God, he's just depressing us. And then he said, but the books are amazing. And then he gave this really inspirational speech about how even when everything is bad, the books are amazing. The process is infallible and the potential is unlimited. So, you know, like our Maya, our shortcoming, our imperfection can never be greater than the potential of the spiritual energy. And so even though we're broken in so many ways, like they say, even a broken clock can tell the right time twice a day. So even though we're kind of broken instruments, because we're delivering something so powerful, it can still change people's lives. And we just have to take comfort in that fact. So that's just one of them.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Mitravinda Devi, please, you may unmute.
Sadeva, are you there?
Hare
Yes.
Krishna Maharaj, Hare Krishna
Hare
everyone.
Krishna,
Thank you
Mitravinda
Hello?
Maharaj for speaking today. I always look forward to having an opportunity. Please send my obeisance. I'll go show Prabhupada. Having an opportunity to hear you. I appreciate greatly your Bhakti
Hello?
S project. I appreciate your sincerity and the way Krishna has enlivened and gifted you with the ability to connect so deeply and easily with matters of bhakti, which sometimes can be complicated. My question for you today is, in speaking, and I do apologize for being late, in speaking about seriousness in our bhakti path, seriousness in our sadhana, seriousness in our desire to move forward on this journey of bhakti. I hear it, and sometimes not as a criticism, but I hear it from people who, you know, I don't know if it's me taking it that way, but how can we keep the joy, the personalism, the affection, and the love that is bhakti and be serious? Because I see this is, you know, chop, 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 this way, serious. You have to show you're serious. My seriousness does not come across as lifeless. I can be very serious and feel bhakti in a sense. I'm not perfect. Please don't think that. And I'm not criticizing, but I just feel like for the youth, for people who are eternally youthful like myself, and for those who are new, and for those who are suffering, and for those who are struggling, when we put it in a box that says serious, we're not allowing people to access the bliss at the same time.
Yeah, no, this is a great point. Thank you so much for sharing that. Maybe seriousness needs to be redefined. The way I see seriousness is it's an investment of the heart. If you do so, like Shraddha, the word Shraddha or faith literally means to place your heart. When you have faith in something, it literally means to put your heart into it. And for me, to be serious means that you do something with your heart. And that means there's joyfulness, there's emotion, there's sensitivity, there's a lot of presence there. And it just means to do something with your heart. And so I think we have this notion of seriousness, which is, you know, just like a bit dry, a bit, you know, austere, a bit kind of very rigid. But what I see seriousness is just doing something with an incredible level of deliberation of the goal that you're trying to achieve. And so Srila Prabhupada was so like, Srila Prabhupada is amazing. He was like such a missionary. And then he'd just like watch Charlie Chaplin videos and just be laughing. You know, or like Srila Prabhupada would just like, he would tell stories of like Akbar and Birbal and it'd just be like cracking up. Prabhupada would just make jokes about the state of affairs of the world. And, you know, like, so he was a joyful person, like, but he was serious about serious things. That's what my spiritual master said to me. He goes, spiritual life is laughing, is joking, is smile. And then he looked at me and he said, but be serious about serious things.
Mm-hmm.
And that means, you know, like when it does come, you know, to serious moments, when we're trying to connect with Krishna, when we're trying to cry for Krishna like a baby cries for a mother, then that's a serious thing. We're really trying to connect there. And in that moment, our devotion, our character may take on a different flavor. So I think the devotee has all of these dimensions. And I think the serious aspect does it, if the serious aspect makes you dry, makes you impersonal, makes you hard-hearted, for me, that's not seriousness. Seriousness should actually be a greater investment of the heart, which makes you all the other things. But it just means that you do what you're doing with great deliberation and great conscientiousness of the goal. I don't know if that helps. Some thoughts.
It helps greatly, Maharaj. And again, I am truly grateful to find you and hear you and take your lead. And I appreciate you being on the planet. And I hope to converse with you soon about some projects. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for the answer. Maharaj, please. Today, you see, we don't get to have your association many times, most of the time, I should say. And as such, today that we have you here, I'm seeing so many hands raised. Are you in the UK, Maharaj?
I'm in the UK, yeah.
Okay, good. So the time is not too late for you, and I hope you don't have.
4:30, yeah. No, I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm good. As
Okay,
long as
thank
you
you.
want to go. Yeah, I'm okay.
All right. So Madhavan Prabhu, please you may unmute and go ahead to ask your question.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj,
Hare Krishna,
it's a
Madhavan.
great pleasure having to attend your class. I almost missed the class, but somehow Krishna had a problem. But nonetheless, when I heard that you are the speaker today, I just have to queue up. So glad to have you around. When you mentioned about repeating the Srimad Bhagavatam over and over and over again, that reminds me of the benediction that was given to Krishna by spiritual master when he graduated from his Guru life. So when he graduated, the benediction that was given spiritual master was that he is teaching that of Bhagavad Gita that will be ever fresh.
Madhavan Prabhu.
Yeah, it's
Madhavan
difficult
Prabhu,
to hear you, Prabhu.
Your audio was breaking up. So hold on. What we're going to try to do is to stop your video, and then you just go ahead and then speak because your audio was breaking up.
So how's this now?
Go ahead.
Is it better?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm trying to remind us of the benediction that the spiritual master of Krishna, when he was graduating, that his teaching or his words will ever be fresh. That's why when we read Bhagavad Gita over and over again, we used to get more realization. The more you read it, the more you get realization. And I believe this thing will also apply when we read Srimad Bhagavatam. So I didn't have problem when you are explaining that it is true, it's viral method. At the end of the day, reading often and often of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Then about the seriousness also, if you can give me some time, about the seriousness, when we're in the school, in the university, there are some lecturers who teaches with more enthusiasm. So students like to, present in the class. People are more interested in such lecturers, even though the subject matter is very difficult, but because of their style, they put a lot of humor, joyfully they do it. So students are more enthused. They are more interested in learning from such a master. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you,
Maharaj.
brother. I didn't catch everything. Maybe Sahadev,
Yeah.
did you catch it? Well,
Yes,
maybe it was a comment.
It was more or less like a comment or remark, but he was trying to say like however fresh the Bhagavatam is, that even though one may hear the Bhagavatam for so many times, but it's still ever fresh. And he was also talking about one instructor he had in the university, that he was not like a very good instructor, but his demeanor and the way he talks just encourages the students to be in the class to listen to him.
I see.
Yeah, so those were some comments he made.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we go to Tribhuvanat Prabhu. Please, you may unmute. Tribhuvanat is in India, I think in Vrindavan.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Nice to see you.
Accept my obeisances, Maharaj.
My obeisances to you.
Maharaj, first of all, I want to acknowledge your latter part of your presentation where you mentioned about questions. I think that is very important. In philosophy, we are meant to know that the answers are not very important. In fact, the answers are irrelevant, but the questions are the topmost thing because the questions build upon questions, just like we've seen from the life of Parishit and the response he's getting here and there. So my question is about what you emphasize on, which deals with the adhika. So I was trying to find out how many adhika do we have, actually, when it comes to spiritual practice.
How many, sorry, Tribuna, can you just rephrase it? I didn't understand. How many adhikar is it?
Okay, let me preface myself.
Probably how much?
Let me preface myself to you, Maharaj. Generally, I'm aware that whatever we do, giving classes, listening to classes, they are all service, right? They're all service. So in the morning, we keep requesting Tulsi Dev to give adhika. And here, most of your talk was actually emphasizing on the importance of adhika to hear Bhagavatam. So that categorize adhika. So I was, wondering how many adhikas are there.
Oh, okay. What are the levels of adhikar of different types of listeners of the Bhagavatam or speakers? Both. Yeah, if you look in the Bhagavat Mahatmya, and something you may want to look up later on, but this is basically a section of the Puranas, which is a glorification of the Bhagavatam. And what it does in the Bhagavat Mahatmya is it talks about 4 types of inferior listeners and 4 types of superior listeners. So if you read this section of the Bhagavatam, I'll just show you on my I'll just show you very quickly. Just give me 1 second. So if you see here, can you see this?
Yes,
Yeah,
Maharaj.
not very eligible.
Yeah, so you see, let me just zoom in here. So if you see here, these are the 4 types of superior listeners of Bhagavatam. This is given in Bhagavat Mahatmya. That the superior listeners are like the Chataka, they're like the swan, they're like the parrot, and then they're like the fish. And then there are 4 types of listeners who are the inferior ones. I don't know if anyone on the call remembers them. I can't remember them off the top of my head. But if you look at this delineation, then it explains what are the different levels of different individuals who are hearing the Bhagavatam. And from each of these examples, you can take like different qualities that will help you to improve your own adhikar of hearing Bhagavatam. Because if you think about it, hearing Bhagavatam is something we do every single day. And if we become good at it, if we become really, really fine-tuned in how we hear Bhagavatam, we can transform our spiritual life. And I travel across the world, and I can see that some people, some devotees have just, and I don't think it's just that they were born with that, but they just developed very, very good habits and an internal seriousness when it comes to hearing Bhagavatam. And therefore they get so much when they hear Hari Katha. So the different adhikars are given. The other adhikars are given, there are qualifications given in the Bhagavatam, for example, of a good disciple. For example, I'll show you another verse here. Just give me 1 second. So this is found.
Maharaj, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
In a point, is that you mentioned that there are more than one adhikar. Is that a point you're making?
Yeah, there are different levels. Like we could say, when we say adhikar means qualification. Okay.
Absolutely.
So qualification is basically made up of the different qualities that someone has. And the qualities can be many. And according to how many of these qualities one has, their adhikar is established on that. So for example, different qualities could be like eagerness to hear, humility to absorb, attentiveness, all of these kind of things, not having any agenda, hearing without any personally motivated ideas. These are different qualities. And when one has all of these qualities, then their adhikar is at the highest. And when their adhikar is at the highest, Harikatha can have transformation like this. That's why Parikshit heard in 7 days and it was complete. That's why Arjun heard in 45 minutes. But if the adhikar is not there, then even one may hear the highest thing, the transformation is not there. That's why I said sometimes we focus on giving people answers. But if you're if you're speaking to me, giving me all the answers, but in my heart, I'm not even asking those questions deeply, then even though your answers make complete sense, they still don't go into my heart. And therefore, you as a speaker, what you might want to do for me is first get me asking the question. That's why even Srila Prabhupada said with Bhaktivedanta Institute, he said, your mission is to plant seeds of doubt, to get people doubting. Because when people doubt, and then you give them the philosophy, they have more adhikar to absorb it. So I guess Tribhuvanath Prabhu, what I'm saying is that Adhikar is made up of many, many different qualities of superior listeners. And as you increase all of those qualities, your Adhikar is higher.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for the answer. There are a couple of hands up, but I have a question which has a connection to Tribhunath Prabhu's question and the answer you gave, Maharaj. And that is, you were talking about Lord Chaitanya saying that he is mad. And the devotee who is also associating with him is also mad. And all along, I had been very much concerned about my life in this lifetime that I never go mad. Because Krishna says one should free himself or liberate himself by the power of the mind. And if I go mad, it means my mind is no more working. But I'm learning from this lecture that if one can be mad for Krishna, or if one can be mad of Krishna, that is also amazing. So in medicine, there are certain things that could go wrong and then somebody goes mad. Now, how do I become mad for Krishna? I want to be mad for Krishna. How do I become mad for Krishna? This is my question, Maharaj.
Yeah, one devotee told me spiritual life means to go from one illusion to another illusion. Right now, we're under the illusion of Mahamaya, and then eventually we just go under the illusion of Yoga Maya. The Bhagavatam says, Nunam pramate kurute vikarma. Everyone in this world is mad after materialistic things. They're mad. They've gone mad. And then the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu says, Japite Japite mantra, korira pagal. I'm chanting the mantra again and again, and I'm becoming completely mad. So either you cry in the material world about all the material things that went wrong, or you cry for Krishna. But one thing is you're going to cry one way or the other. You're going to be mad one way or the other. And you're going to, be an illusion one way or the other. It just depends which one you want to be under. That's basically what what the reality is. So yeah, we have to become mad. There's an interesting letter Prabhupada writes to a GBC. It's very interesting. He writes this letter to a GBC. So in the whole letter, he's telling him all his duties, managerial, take care of the devotees, manage everything properly. And then in the final line, Prabhupada says, and don't forget, your main duty as a GBC is to become mad after Krishna. It's very nice because Prabhupada is giving all his job description, service, and then he says the main thing is you got to become mad after Krishna. That's your biggest mission. Yeah. How do we become mad after Krishna? The holy name has that power. The holy name, Nam No Hi Yavati Shakti. And Hari Kirtan has to become accompanied by Hari Katha, because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says Radharani is the Svarup Shakti of Krishna, and we never worship Krishna without Radharani. And similarly, Hari Katha is the Svarup Shakti of Hari Kirtan. So if you do Hari Kirtan but you don't do Hari Katha, then you won't have the right conception to chant the holy name in the appropriate way. The absorption may not come. And therefore, Hari Kirtan and Hari Katha is the only way to become mad, sure way to become mad.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. So we go to Harichakra Prabhu. Please you may unmute. Harichakra.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you very much for that and all the questions that are going on. During your deliberation, you were mentioning about questioning that if a speaker is giving answers, then the answer should be able to prompt further questions. And I could see during the time of Ketananda Maharaj, that was one deep quality that I observe with him. That anytime he gives class, he leaves so much loopholes. By the time he's done with the class, almost the whole room, everybody's hands is up to ask questions. And by the time he's done with those questions, you just wake up from the class very satisfied. And I remember one devotee went on Sankirtan and one Christian priest smashed him so bad with so many things. And the devotee became so miserable. So he came to the temple. He didn't even finish his Sankirtan. He came to the temple. But somehow or the other, he has written all the things, the questions the Christian priest was saying. And during the Bhagavad Gita class that evening, he was also bombarding the speaker with all these questions. And the speaker gave satisfactory answers to him. The next morning, this devotee did not even wait. Right after Mongarati, he was out. He went to stay behind the store, the door, the store of the Christian priest. And the gate, the priest, the store was supposed to open at 8 o'clock, but this devotee was there before 10. And when the Christian priest came, he also started giving his answers, bombarding the Christian priest with it. And the Christian priest became so satisfied that he purchased all the books that he had. So this devotee was so satisfied. So my question is, sometimes of late, recently, there are a lot of speakers that if they speak and there's so many questions to ask, and you ask a question and you follow up your question, then it becomes as if you are challenging them. It becomes as if, why are you asking this question after this? And when it happens like that, it some sort of demoralizes you. So in a situation like that, what do we do? Because it's not like we are answering the question because we don't understand something and we are trying to look for clarification. So when we become demoralized by the way the speaker responds to us, then what do we do in a situation like that?
Yeah, no, thank you, Hari Chakrapu. Thank you for sharing that story. All our shastras are questions and answers, right? All of our questions are dialogues. When we do question and answers, that's when the deepest truths of bhakti come out, you know? So definitely, even Srila Prabhupada, after every class, he left time for questions and answers. Even Srila Prabhupada would debate with his disciples, and he would want to be challenged by them. So definitely, you know, questions and answers are so much a part of our tradition. I think we can just sometimes reflect on when we're asking questions. Of course, Srila Prabhupada, he gives the criteria, if I remember correctly, in 434 of the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know, maybe Sadhava Prabhu, you can have a look and see if you can find it. I think Srila Prabhupada gives the kind of
the mood.
Mood, yeah. He says that you shouldn't ask useless things. He says you shouldn't, is it 434 or is it in a different? Maybe just have a look. I think if you look in the purport, he said you shouldn't ask useless things. You shouldn't ask in a challenging mood.
Yeah, it's 434, Maharaj, you say.
Is it there?
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah.
This is, yeah, there was another one I was thinking of, another purport where it explained. Maybe someone will know, I'm not sure, but anyway, yeah, just give me 1 second. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, yeah, somehow I can't find it now. But yeah, what we have to just make sure, Hari Chakrapu, is that we just do it in the right mood. Oftentimes, it's not the fact that we're asking a question which is sometimes disturbing to a speaker. Sometimes they may feel the mood of it or the challenging spirit behind it. That may be triggers something within them. So if we inquire humbly, and with a mood of being open, without a challenging spirit, and it's appropriate and relevant to the discussion at hand, I don't think speakers will generally have a problem with that, you know. But it's those inquiries. Remember, like when the sages asked Sutta those questions, Sutta Goswami, he was like ecstatic. He was like, these questions are amazing because they're giving me an opportunity to reveal deeper and deeper things. So a question is like a key, because what that question does is it unlocks the potential for a deeper truth to come to the surface. But it's just that the question has to be relevant. It has to be asked in the right spirit, and you know, like that.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for the answer. We go to Her Grace Gail Devi, please. You may unmute, Gail.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear you quote verse 10.9 from the Gita when you were, that's the one, Machita Madgata Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam. Yeah, it was interesting because just right before this class, someone else quoted that same verse to make the point about sadhu sangha, that sadhu sangha doesn't necessarily mean associating only with perfected souls or very elevated souls. You know, I'm just trying to substantiate your point,
Yeah.
that sadhu sangha means, you know, this form, you know, or, you know, Krishna Katha among friends or people who were
Equal,
peers,
yeah.
equals. And the speaker cited the same verse that you did and highlighted the part that said Bodhayanta Parasparam, where it means that we enlighten each other. And so the reason why that part supports the point that Krishna Katha should also happen among peers is because we don't normally think of enlightening our superior. You know, if we're going to enlighten each other,
that's a very good point. Yeah, very good point.
Yeah, I thought so too. And so it's so interesting that you also cited this same verse to support the point that, you know, Krishna Katha, Sadhu Sangha, doesn't necessarily mean, you know, perfected devotees only. So that was it.
Yeah, just to reiterate that point, just to get it in my head as well, and for everyone, that sadhu sangha clearly means it's not just with a superior, because in this verse it says that both parties are enlightening one another. So you wouldn't really enlighten a superior. You would hear from a superior and be enlightened by, but there's a mutual exchange of enlightenment, which means this is an exchange taking place among equals. Yeah, really nice way. And the other interesting point about this is that it says constantly enlightening, which I always found to be a very interesting phrase, because generally we think of enlightenment as a destination, as a state. But here it says you're constantly enlightening. And the point there is that enlightenment is not a destination, but enlightenment is a direction. In other words, you can constantly move in the direction of enlightenment, and enlightenment is ever expanding. I thought that was also a beautiful, beautiful point in Prabhupada's translation, because generally,
which I was going to say, which makes sense since Krishna is unlimited. So how can we ever, how can we ever reach a destination?
Yeah. But it's interesting, you don't really find that in traditions of divinity around the world. You'd never really, not that I've read, you know, a concept of constantly enlightening. There's always a sense in which enlightenment is a destination. But yeah, nice point. Thank you so much.
Thank you also, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Maharaj. Shri Govinda Prabhu, please hear me on mute.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. Our glories to you, our glories to Srila Prabhupada, and our glories to your service. I thank you very much for a very wonderful presentation of Krishna consciousness. Maharaj, I have two questions, but my first question is, I will deviate a little bit from the trend of the discussion today. The question I have is that the other Prabhu, potential proper disciple, was speaking about you, your level of understanding consciousness is not just, from this lifetime. It's a carryover from the previous lives. And so the question I had was, when we are coming in this lifetime, do we get bodies from our the immediate previous life, or the other lifetimes also,
before that,
all put into account to prepare the body we are to appear with in this lifetime?
Yeah, good question. Thank you, Prabhu. It seems as though what our situation now is a combination not just of the immediate previous life, but because of many, many lifetimes before. For example, we have this story of Dhritarashtra, and we know that all of his sons died. So later on they asked, like, why did you have to go through that? And they said so many lives ago, I think it was 100 lives before or something, he had committed some offense. And therefore he had to also experience 100 of his sons dying. So then the question was asked, why did you have to wait so many lifetimes? So then the answer was given that you needed all of those lifetimes to build up the pious credit to get that many sons first. And then once you built up the pious credit to have that many sons, then you had the sons, and then you could experience the reaction from hundreds of lifetimes ago. So the point is that whatever we're going through now is not just from the immediate previous life. There's influences and things from multiple lives that we have to deal with. Yeah.
Wonderful.
If someone knows
Wow.
I don't know, Sahadev, if you can pick out a reference for that story from Mahabharata, because I probably didn't say it completely accurate, but yeah, but that story basically tells us that it's not just your previous life, it's many effects of many lives.
So then, Maharaj, this will lead me to my next question. If that is the case, then the living entities have to suffer the results of their activities when he quit this body. He has to go to Yamaraj, and he has to face the necessary discipline as to the reaction of his work. So does this discipline destroys the activities of the individual, such an individual souls? Because we know, it said whatever is happening spiritually, we also have a perverted reflection here on the physical platform. That when one is, offends the state law, or one commits any dubious act and is arrested, he goes to jail. So he get a certain amount of imprisonment based on his action. And when he finishes serving that imprisonment, then he's out of the prison. So when we go to Yamaloka, we go to Yamaraj, and the living entity faces his resurgent judgment. Does that not end his actions, even after the
Well,
punishment from Yamaraj.
yeah. Well, just in your example, you know, say someone commits a crime and then they have to suffer 25 years in prison. In most legal systems around the world, what happens is after about 10 years, they interview the candidate. And if they feel like the candidate has reformed themselves, has changed, then sometimes they give them parole. They just let them go early. They don't have to serve the sentence because the point of the jail sentence was to reform their character. So if they've been reformed, then there's no need for the sentence anymore. And karma is exactly the same. The reason why we get a karmic reaction is so that we can learn. But if Krishna sees that we've learned the lesson, then Krishna may also remove the reaction, or Krishna will make you immune to the suffering of the reaction. In other words, the main thing is that karma is meant to transform us. And if we become transformed, then sometimes the karma, therefore Krishna says, Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma sucha. If you surrender unto me, I remove all sinful reactions.
Yeah, Maharaj, yeah, that is true. Thank you very much. But the other side of the question is this, that, you know, like the karma is said that when one slaps someone, then if he doesn't get the results in this lifetime, definitely he has to come back for someone to also slap him. Or if one stabs somebody, kills somebody, he has to be killed also. The perfect example is there in the Bible by John the Baptist and the fetish priest of Baal. So if the person has committed such an offense, and that has taken him to Yamaraj, for him to get the punishment from Yamaraj for doing that, why does he again have to come back for somebody to punish him from what he did before leaving the body to Yamaraj? Do we have a double punishment after Yamaraj? Then we come back, we take a body, you know, based on our karmic activities and face the consequence. We get double punishment.
Yeah, it seems that both punishments are there because that's maybe what is required to transform someone's consciousness. But remember, once one has been punished by Yamaraj, if they come back to this world and that other punishment in this life is still waiting to happen, if in the course of, before that punishment happens, if in the course of their life, they actually learn the lesson, then maybe that punishment won't come to them in their life. Therefore, like even, you know, like the devotees, when some suffering happens to them, they look up at Krishna and they say, Krishna, I deserved much worse, but you reduced it because I've taken up the process of devotional service. So yeah, there is a double punishment, but the second punishment may not always be required if one shows in their life that they've reformed themselves.
It's a double punishment. Oh, yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Kusha Prabhu, please.
Please, I have one last question, please. Sorry, you're still long, 2 hours. My own question is still on this question of Prabhu Govinda. I want to ask, is there a realm in spiritual practices where one can remember his previous life and his future life? Would we talk about
learning your previous life? Definitely that's there. You know, there are devotees who have done past life regressions, who through astrology and other things, they can determine aspects of where they were previously. Some astrologers, they will do your astrology, and if you have certain blocks in this life, certain difficulties or obstacles, they can often relate it to something you may have done in a previous life or an offense or something like that. So that's definitely there. Can they predict your future lives? Remember, Krishna consciousness changes everything. So we're creating our destiny by our free will right now. So you can't necessarily predict your future life in that sense. because you're creating your future life at every moment by the free will that you exercise now. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense, because if one can remember his previous life and the next life, it will surely help devotees in practicing spiritual life.
You would think so. Not necessarily. You know, there was this this person who wrote a book about kids who remembered their previous lives.
Yes.
Right? So these are kids who they just spontaneously remember who they were in their previous life, how they died, you know, everything, all that stuff. And then he wrote another book to see how many of these kids actually became spiritual. And it's amazing. You'd think that if you remembered your previous life, if you knew you were here, you died, you came back again, you'd think like, okay, that's it. Now I'm going to surrender, you know, and it's not. You don't. It's
I've
not
read a
just,
book that says the reason why the living entities forget their previous life is because if you remember that I killed you in your past life, you want to revenge in this lifetime.
yeah.
So
And it's
Krishna removed that
traumatic.
memory of remembrance to
Yeah.
keep peace.
Too traumatic. Yeah. No, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kusha Prabhu. And we go to Shriman Varaha Acharya. Please, you may unmute. Maharaj, thank you so much for spending so much time with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Hare
so much.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, my obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to the Assembly devotees. We are very much glad to have you here on our platform, and we hope to see you much often. My question is about the Adhikari. And you mentioned back and forth the qualities or qualifications. And there was one that you mentioned in passing. Because when you were mentioning the topics of the Bhagavata, you mentioned the mercy Adhikari in the story of Ajamil and Chitraketu and Vikasura. So I was reflecting on that, how the mercy Adhikari is often not being, we don't talk much about that. But Lord Chaitanya actually emphasized that in his pastime with Haridas Thakur and Nityananda Prabhu when they went on Sankirtan, and they could not find anyone qualified. And he said, in this age, nobody is qualified. Qualified or unqualified, everybody should come. So I think that if the speakers, there are cases where the speakers may have to deal directly with some qualification because the people, you know, because of their eagerness and all that. But then Kali Yuga, such a place, time that the mercy Adhikari is actually what most people need. And because we do not emphasize this, many people come and they really find that they are not, that Krishna consciousness is not for them. Because we are on the high pedestal of qualifications. But, you know, so anyway, I don't want to make it a talk. I just say contribution and the comments that this Adhikari of mercy, the more we get that from speakers, the more people get absorbed and willing to surrender and to hear more. But that mercy Adhikari is not being emphasized and it's missing most of the time. That's my point.
Yeah, it is a beautiful point, actually. In this beautiful song Srila Prabhupada gave us, then he says, Patita Pavana Hetu Tavayavatar Mosama Patita Prabhu Napai Bear. That Mahaprabhu has come to deliver the most fallen. And then Narottam, he says, Mosama Patita Prabhu, I am the most fallen. I have no qualification. I have nothing. Therefore, my claim is the first. And so the idea definitely in Kali Yuga is we have no qualification. We are very, very fallen. We're very, very low. And when we come to that realization, then that realization of our fallen nature opens up us for the mercy, which ultimately gives us the greatest adhikar because we get the mercy. So that's such a beautiful point. I really appreciate it. And just to add something to that, Srila Prabhupada also gave us the concept of Kanista Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, and Uttam Adhikari. And he would often say that one should not remain on a Kanista level. We should not remain Kanistas our whole life. We should at least come to the point of Madhyam. And therefore he would say, study Shastra, associate with devotees, purify the heart, and therefore at least come to the level of Madhyamadhikari. So we also see that Srila Prabhupada was also encouraging and teaching and nurturing the devotees that at least they must come to the level of Madhyam Adhikari. And therefore, just along with that understanding one is fallen and one is reliant upon mercy, which is the very foundation of Mahaprabhu's movement, simultaneously with that, there is also the conscientious and deliberate endeavor of the devotee to try to rise above being a Kanista Adhikari or a neophyte devotee and actually increase their qualification to absorb more. So yeah, both things, I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mara. Sarvatma Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Maharaj. I would like to go back for a moment, at least, to the previous life and punishment. I can only offer another 2 cents, which will make it 4 cents, not very much still. The idea of remembering our previous lives, it may sound mystical or romantic to some, but seems like counter-indicated, as if we, at the time of death, we have so many attachments, we have so many vicissitudes and adventures and things that we are attached to, that if we get to remember 10,000 families and 100,000 attachments and 1 million problems at the time of death, there will be no getting out of this world. Nobody will be unscathed. So the less, the best in that case. So it's Krishna's mercy that we don't remember. So I don't think we should push into past life regression and all that stuff. It's kind of a waste of time. It's basically getting into an unwanted catalog of things that we don't want, but we become addicted to. There was the father of a devotee, friend of mine. He was so addicted to watching infomercials about things in the middle of the night that they sell stuff that you don't need. That actually the people from the infomercials, they had his direct phone line and they will call him before they put the infomercial out because they knew he was going to order one. So his garage was completely full of unopened packages that he never used or could get rid of. So this seems like a labyrinth and a nightmare, that accumulating more things, we have enough. So we don't need that. And as far as punishment, it seems like one thing that we are lacking, and I can say just for myself in this movement, is introspection. We have plenty of dogma, plenty of philosophy, plenty of rituals, plenty of everything else, but we lack introspection to see what's really going on. I had an experience in 2008. I had shingles, which is an extremely painful sickness. Then it lasted 2 months. And of course, after a couple of days of such intense pain, I was praying to Krishna. Usually we don't ask Krishna to change his mind. In other words, just to show us why. So I was basically doing that at that point, and saying, okay, Krishna, I think I get the point. Can you tell me why this is going on? Why this intense suffering? It was so intense. I actually Googled. I didn't know what shingles was, which is herpes, Zorax, which is the same as
chickenpox.
Chickenpox, exactly. Chickenpox, the virus remains in the nervous system and then eventually may manifest. And because it's in the nervous system, the pain is very intense. It's like, imagine a root canal, wherever the area is, without anesthesia for 2 months, constant pain. So I was asking Krishna why. I mean, okay, after a couple of days, I get the message. I need to suffer for a reason. Can you tell me which reason is that, and how can I change it? I think that was enough. But it didn't stop. So the pain was from 8 to 10 for the entire time. But then I did realize a couple of things, fortunately. One is that Krishna was kind to raise my pain threshold. So at the time of death, I wouldn't become totally bewildered, because that's what happened before you die, that the pain is so intense that your consciousness goes in that direction and cannot raise above the body, the mind, etc. So Krishna showed me such intense pain that next time I get something like that, hopefully not, but if I do, I will probably respond in a different way. And the second lesson that I learned is that I don't want that kind of suffering to be given. I wouldn't want to be the reason that other people suffer because of me. That I will not desire as revenge, or, I mean, it's not always working, but at least I wouldn't desire that someone suffers on my account just because they did something to me, or because I enjoy the thought of someone else suffering. So perhaps this was not a question, but I will encourage you to comment on what you heard, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, definitely. On your first point about past life regressions, I think I totally agree. Like, I also was tempted to try and find out, but you realize it doesn't really. Firstly, you don't know how accurate it is. It can just be imagination. And even if you do know, it can just sometimes imprison you more and more in the past instead of looking forward. And I haven't found in many devotees' lives that it's been useful personally. So definitely agree with that one. And the second point about suffering and trying to decipher what's the reason behind the suffering and why we go through that, and being more introspective, I really resonate with that point. If we put more and more food in our mouth, but we don't chew, we don't close and chew it, at some point, it's like there's no nourishment. And, so I think definitely, we have to find more ways to do mananam, do deep reflection, do introspection. Sometimes I feel like, because in our movement, often there's a lot of talk about ignoring your mind and getting off the mental platform, which is obviously really important. But later on, what I think is that we have to activate our spiritual thinking as well, our spiritual introspective abilities. And sometimes we just kind of dehumanize that thinking aspect so much that it never reawakens in a more spiritual and positive form. So yeah, I think definitely more introspection, trying to learn from the situation that we're in. Yeah, these are all such important aspects of growing in Krishna consciousness. Yeah, some thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Saratma Prabhu. And Maharaj, thank you for.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing to be with you all.
Yeah.
So it's getting a little dark here. And
yes. Maharaj, I have one quick comment. And
sure. I'll just turn the light on. Just give me 1 second. Huh?
Okay. Okay, thank you. I think it's been a very wonderful, beautiful Sangha. And we hope we can have this every single day. Maharaj, like I was saying, I have one quick comment and one quick request at the same time. And my comment is that in Africa, there are some people who can put some concoction in somebody's eyes. And as soon as they do that, that particular individual will begin to see subtle beings. There are many subtle beings around us that those of us who cannot see subtle things, we do not see them, we do not experience them. But once they put such concoction in your eyes, you begin to see things. But because they have not been prepared to see such beings, they see such things, such beings, and they actually go mad. They go crazy. But there are others who have been trained, and so when they see such beings, there is no problem. And so I have come to believe that for those of us who are kanishtas, who are struggling, forgetfulness of our previous life is actually a safe haven for us. Because if we do know our past lives, we might not be able to contain our present day life. Yeah. So if we've forgotten about our past life, we don't even need to want to know what our past life was, because it will not help us in any way. Yeah. And then my request is that it was so beautiful when you were showing the slide of the Srimad Bhagavatam, when you were talking about the cantos and the topics. And I was thinking, just as like you wrote the like abridged form of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, if you may be generous enough, kind enough to make something like maybe a study guide to the Srimad Bhagavatam or abridged form of the Srimad Bhagavatam, I think that will help lots of devotees, particularly myself. So it's a humble request, Maharaj, if you could do that for us.
Oh, no, we have that. We've done that. We've created a study guide on the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Oh, okay.
It's called Book Bhagavata. It's out of print at the moment, but in a few months it will come back into print. So yeah, we'll let you know about that. Yeah, that's there.
Okay.
In one book, we try to summarize the 12 cantos just so you can understand the flow.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Maharaj. And we can't thank you enough for...
Thank you. Wonderful to be with you all. You're definitely amazing listeners, and you make up for my lack of qualifications as a speaker. Really appreciate
Maharaj.
it.
We can't thank you enough
Kind
for
words.
the depth of wisdom and the love and the time dedicated for us today. And I'm sure that all the devotees assembled here and whoever is watching and maybe watching this later on will be very much pleased. And therefore, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute, and we all chant the loudest Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, His Holiness SVAYAM Bhagavan Keshava Swami Maharaj. Please. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Hare,
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna,
Rama,
Hare
Hare Rama.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Kalpa
Hare.
Taribhyascha, Kripa Bhaktivedanta Bhutana
Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.
His Holiness SVAYAM Bhagavan Keshava Swami Maharaj ki.